Will the low-code and no-code movement result in fewer developer jobs? Or will it actually encourage more people to become developers? That's what we're talking about on this episode of Dynamic Developer. I'm your host, Bill Detweiler, and on this show, I'm joined by Marcus Torres, GM of Integration Hub and VP of Platform Product with ServiceNow, to talk about how the low-code and no-code movement is affecting the field of software development and how his company is using low-code and no-code platforms to help companies be more agile and respond more quickly to customer needs. Marcus, thanks for joining me.
No, thanks for having me here. It's always great to speak with you.
Well, so I know that what we're going to talk about is no code and low code, the movement that's been part of the developer community for quite a while now. Sometimes a little bit of controversy. So before we kind of get into some of the things that maybe, ServiceNow is doing around no code and low code, or how you think about it, let's start with maybe like one of the hot button issues, which is, what is the net effect of low code and no code going to be on the developer community at large? Are we going to see a time where we have fewer developers because more end users and admins are creating code? Or really is that sort of just a standard kind of unfounded fear that we always have with kind of new technology and transitions?
Bill, I don't know about you, but ever since I was a kid and watching the Jetsons or looking at old clips from the 1950s where stoves make dinner themselves, the reality is technology has helped us. It hasn't hurt us. As a society and as a workforce, we've constantly leveraged technology to be more productive and to focus on the things that, in all honesty, humans are better at. And yes, there's been doom and gloom about everything from AI and now to no and low code. The reality is development is a team sport. And, if you are an admin, if you're someone in operations, if you just know how to, you're fluent with Excel, the reality is there's platforms and technologies out there that allow you to do innovative things. It doesn't mean developers go away. And one of the most common ways that I see this is it's just experience like any other job. If somebody starts and picks up a no and low code platform, they build what they know. But guess what? They start working with their colleagues. They start getting feedback from people, just as someone like me in product management hears from customers all the time. And now they want to improve it. Now they need to maintain their application. Guess what? Who's the army of people that know how to do that best? Real developers. And those real developers can actually enjoy empowering and educating this kind of no and low code community to go further, faster, and innovate themselves. And guess what? Those same developers also like using no low code tools to get past what I want to call the remedial part of application development and really focus on the challenging parts. And so, like I said, this is a team sport. Developers aren't going anywhere. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in computer science and you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to be automated through some low code platform, that's not the case. The reality is developers are, the Jedis of innovation, and they'll continue to be in the future. They just get additional help and can go faster and build more with some of these platforms and along with their teammates.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that's one of the things that I hear from people who work and are developing developing automation platforms, not just with respect to development, but in other sort of parts of what we would consider sort of digital transformation, is that it really is about taking away some of those tedious, repetitive tasks and empowering, in this case, developers to really focus on those things that they want to focus on, which are maybe building new products, solving problems, as opposed to maybe responding to every end user request or product manager's request. What's your take on that? I mean, it sounds like that's what I'm hearing you say.
in simplest terms, please take the simple tasks away. I think everybody wants that. When you, whether you're, a recent grad in your first role in a corporation, to a startup entrepreneur doing it all, to an executive, you don't want to do the remedial tasks. You want to focus on the critical work where you're adding value to your customer, to your employees, to your organization. And the fact is, these remedial tasks, what they do is they slow us down from being able to innovate. They slow us down from being able to actually focus on the critical things that are going to bring higher value. Um, and so if you have automation platforms, like, Flow Designer and our workflow capabilities within ServiceNow, or Integration Hub that can connect systems, with clicks versus code. Again, same thing. We want to automate the easy things, the trivial things, and allow people to focus on the critical part of work that takes, cognitive human thought, right? Um, and I'll give you a great example of this. There's a customer who was trying to, I was just talking to, and they were trying to make something more efficient, and in their process, and they just happened to tell me about, oh, well, for every single one of these records, in this case in ServiceNow, that had a specific filter criteria, they have to go and get their team to enter these manually. And I was looking at them and I was like, why are you doing that? Simply create a trigger in Flow Designer and go and create that child record every single time. You never have to worry about it again. And to some folks, it's like, I didn't know to do that. I was going to put process around it. But that's tedious labor that just takes time. And so, similar to kind of the low code question of before, we want automation. Automation is a good thing. Automate the simple tasks, allow the people that, we have, doing their function to focus on the critical value for their customers. And we're all going to be better off. Customers will have better experiences. You'll probably increase your overall revenue, and it'll drive success and satisfaction for everyone.
So if you had to tell developers who are, or do you think that most sort of developers coming through the pipeline right now, look, we've had code complete, tools, library for a long time, but so, but there does seem to be kind of a new, the low code and no code movement is beyond that, right? But it's only a step beyond that because it's pushing those tools and the processes maybe a little further closer to the end user, right? And so how do you kind of, what do you tell maybe developers, like you kind of touched on this earlier, coming through the pipeline now, to, I guess, get their minds right around, like, don't worry about this. Don't be afraid of this. It's kind of similar to like the tools that you're using. It's just a little step beyond that. So as opposed to doing a change request, or as opposed to doing a ticket, a trouble ticket that comes in and having to build, like you were talking about, this whole process, you can focus on that new project, the new app, doing something a little more interesting than kind of that, oh, I really want this data. I really need this one form to do X kind of thing.
Bill, I'm answering your question. Tell me if after I answered it, if I didn't address it quite the way you intended. But what I think you're asking is, hey, there's a new wave of developers that are, coming through, and how should they think about, their kind of their skill set, and how that relates to low and no code? Is that
Yeah, that's exactly it. Said much more artfully than I could.
you know I really think it's a tool in the tool set, right? If you look at what developers, and I used to be a developer, sometimes I miss it because you don't have to deal with all the prioritization. You get just put hands on keyboard, get stuff done. But the reality is our job, our function as developers, is constantly to learn new skills and take on emerging technology, and we love it. Like, we love doing that. And when you look at no and low code tooling, I really see it as a tool in the broader tool set of how they approach a problem, right? And if you have, an operational use case, especially, I think of things like, retail, medical use cases where they still have paper forms all over the place, right? Um, and they're just trying to digitize it. Almost any low code platform can give you a form pretty quickly, like a digital form. Think of COVID and all of the restaurants and all of the dentist appointments. And I know because I have two little girls that I had to get a bunch of digital signatures for. And these kind of check-in apps, all you need is basically some content, some forms to fill out, an acceptance, digital signature, and go, right? These are the kinds of applications that, yes, could I go and I spin up some, like a VM and start to code this, full stack in AWS because I have the skill set to? 100%. Should I? Probably not, because it doesn't require that level of complexity. And so in the same way that, when I approach, say, a project, I like using my hands instead of, because I'm in digital land all week long. In the weekends, when I'm approaching, say, like a home project, I take the right tool for the right job. And I think the same thing is true for no and low code.
You gave an example. Not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but I'd love to drill down on that too. Which is, you gave that example. What's your thought process for making that decision? Like, you see a project that comes to you where the end goal is X, Y, or Z. In your case, creating this really quick, this form, a process that allows you to schedule a dentist appointment, which I can identify with too. I had to reschedule my daughter's orthodontist appointment yesterday. But what's the decision process in your mind for making that choice? Like, whether this is something you need to do a full stack, development process on, or whether it's something you can do with maybe much more quickly, or with the right low code, no code platform.
Yeah, well, the the first thing I would do, in all honesty, is probably gravitate to platforms that allow me to do everything. In all honesty, you have, you have platforms, that developers love and breathe every day, whether it's Google Cloud or Azure or AWS, like the professional developer. And some of those cloud companies have come out with solutions for sort of no and low code, but they seem fragmented or separate from the rest of the platform. And one of the benefits, the reason why I joined ServiceNow, one of the things I love about our platform is it doesn't matter if you're a no code all the way to pro code, it is the same platform. And if you want extensibility, you don't have to learn 4 different ways to do it based on which tool you're doing. It's the same ubiquitous platform. But so when people are approaching, which platforms do I use or how do I leverage it, look at something that you can get consistency on. Look at something that you can solve all of your problems instead of a subset of your problems. That being said, when you start looking at use cases, what I tend to do is I try to look at the total workflow of that specific use case. So I'll give you an example of this. For for the last 20 odd years now, with various SaaS platforms or various platforms that are out there, people are like, this is my job. And in my job, I do this part of the capability. So I need an application just to do this, like my part. But guess what? When you look at the workflow, let's take an employee onboarding scenario. You're talking to IT, there's HR, you have finance, you have your direct team managers, you have potentially procurement or facilities to take care of, well, not right now, but you know what I mean, facilities to arrange the desk. every single person is a chain, is a link in that chain of value or in that entire workflow. And so when I look at those kind of problems, I say, hey, is there a broader workflow here? Right? Then you need, say, a workflow platform to address it. In the case of the dentist example, a lot of these SMBs kind of, they're just like, I need to digitize a form so someone can, or I need a scheduling app because that's what people used to do, either in person or on calls. Like I need them to do this online because it needs to be touchless. In those cases, they are starting at just one step of that overall workflow, but that's the critical need. And so when you're evaluating which platform to go with, part of it is like speed and ease and technical acumen, right? Like small dentist shops don't have a developer probably, or even a low code developer per se. But if they can use some of these platforms just to deal with that initial interaction, that's going to be enough to get them started. And guess what? In all of these platforms, once you sort of have a little taste of success in being able to deliver that value, you continue to grow from there. And you want a platform that can help you do that.
So I know that, we've been talking about low code and no code being around for quite a while now, but one of the things that seems to have really kind of sparked it, and we've talked about some of those examples here with the dentist office, is COVID and people having to make sort of rapid and dramatic shifts in how their apps work, how they interact with customers. Speak to that a little bit about what you've seen from your customers and some of those rapid changes that they've had to make.
I think we are just seeing the true next generational wave of agility. If you look back 10 years, there's companies you think that would never go under that have no longer exist because their lack of being able to be agile and respond to customers and what customers are looking for. Now we have all of Main Street, all of retail, all of restaurants having to do the same thing. And it's about survival. And you cannot survive without being agile. And that's exactly what low code platforms have provided. Customers of ours like Honor Health, um, they used citizen developers to create a COVID-19 symptom tracker in a chatbot experience in 6 hours. We've had a US hospital system that developed an exposure tracker app in 3 days that serves 10,000 staffers. This is what's required. And in some cases, especially with COVID, it's actually saving lives and creating the right connection so we can address this problem. But now think of where we're going to be as a society, as industries, as people coming out of this. Um, we now know what is required to shift quickly, and what that means to our businesses and to our families. And I think the more people that can innovate and get their hands dirty with things like low code platforms, the faster we're going to be able to respond and honestly compete, both as individual, professionals or people, as well as on a global economy.
So let's talk a little bit about the platform you work on, the Integration Hub there at ServiceNow. Give me a little for I can't imagine anybody listening to this isn't familiar with ServiceNow, but give me a little rundown on how Integration Hub sort of functions within, integrates low code, no code into its sort of the application development process there.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Bill, I'm gonna augment your question just a little bit. There's two fundamental aspects of our platform for low code development. There's what we call App Engine. That's our, it's sort of our version of leveraging like Google Cloud or AWS, in the sense of you can take that platform, and whether you're a no code developer all the way to a professional developer, you can leverage that platform to solve your needs. And that's really for any kind of low code development. And then there's Integration Hub, which is our low code integration solution that is accompanying it. And so what we really see in the modern enterprise, right? In the modern business of today, no matter your size, is there are multiple systems you have to connect with. There's external systems you have to connect with, whether it's SaaS applications or other platforms that is part of your business, to on-premise, historical systems or legacy systems. And when you again look at that entire value, the entire workflow that you're building this application for, not just this narrow piece. You may start it in one chunk and keep growing it, but in order to do that, you need to connect systems, people, and processes. And App Engine helps you build those applications seamlessly in a low-code way. And Integration Hub allows you to connect to any third-party system or on-premise system and integrate that into the workflow. This is much different than other platforms where you know what an integration is, right? You go, you talk to their system, you write that to a specific, you map the data to an internal data model with whatever platform you're using, and then you incorporate that into the application. But in App Engine and Integration Hub, you can just seamlessly incorporate that data with what we call a reusable action in Integration Hub. So it just makes it simple. And the best part about it is professional developers who understand APIs and write all those, they build those reusable actions that then a no and low code developer can reuse at any time. And that's really the beauty of our one platform.
Do you think that, I mean, you use that term a couple times, and which is no and low code developer. Do you think we're kind of seeing a bifurcation in the developer community around maybe folks who specialize in languages and sort of, or even building, a full stack developer, as opposed to maybe someone who is half a product manager, or even maybe an end user to some in some respects, but they also have a little bit of coding experience in themselves, and they can do some things through no and low code. How do you think that how do you see that sort of playing out in a modern enterprise? Because I want to touch on that really too before we kind of before we're done, because I think that if that bifurcation happens, or you see that happening, it affects the structure of where development lives within an organization. Because I've been around for a while. I started in IT, not in tech media, and so I've written a lot of code myself, but then again, it's not my full time thing. So you get someone that may be like, hey, I can write SQL queries and do what I need to do to pull the data out, but I can't do this other thing. And that's something that's been around for, a decade. And it seems to be maybe replaying itself here, but with these no code, low code tools.
Yeah. The fact is low code, no code has been a term for probably 15 years, if not more, in one way or another. I think I remember trying to write my first website in a low code front page application, if you remember that. I'm definitely dating myself now. But what did I do? The second I did that, I had to jump into the code, the HTML code, to actually make it work, right? But we are at a different time, I think, in a really a unique time where we have a broad base of the workforce. The majority of the workforce now is the millennial generation or lower, right? So we have a younger, workforce that actually grew up with technology, and they used it as day in and day out. And we don't really think of it as, oh, well, you had apps and phones, but what they essentially have, and that familiarity with technology has given like a technical or literacy that just comes with today's day and age. And now if you accompany that with the fact that low code platforms are much more powerful than they were before, you have a perfect union of people who just want to get stuff done and can figure out technology if you give it to them, and technology that is powerful enough yet simple enough to leverage to really innovate on. Now, there is something you mentioned there, Bill, that is really important, which is enterprises have to be bought into this, right? Like maybe not the mom and pop SMB, but like, you get into any decent sized organization, probably even over 50 people to some degree, or definitely in a few hundred, you're going to have this. You're going to have some level of cooperation and collaboration, and dare I say, guardrails or even governance around that. And that's because there's real risk to customers. There's real risk to, liability or systems going down and affecting that business. And so that is really where, IT or some, center of excellence comes in that works with this contingency, or this constituency of no and low code developers. And the one thing that I've also seen, and I'm curious because again, I used to be in IT too, is there's been a shift in the mentality of IT. It's no longer and nobody who's in IT, don't get mad at me, but it used to be sort of the department of no, right? Like,
yeah, that was the people that just tell me why you can't do anything. You're exactly right. No, I lived that. I was, often seen as one of those people that was saying no,
That's right. That's right. But now it's really about partnership. Like IT understands and has always wanted to deliver value to the organization, but they were always the one with sort of the target on their back if things went bad. And so now what they're really trying to do is create the right empowerment model on the right platform with the right visibility, so they can help and empower people to innovate, but help them when they need to get help and monitor the critical systems that apply to the business and ultimately the customer. And that's what it's really all about in today's age. And that partnership culture has really changed. And that's what I'm seeing more and more today, especially with, customers that are being successful with citizen developer programs and no and low code platforms, and blending that with their IT organization or other development organizations.
Well, I couldn't have picked a better place to kind of end our conversation on, Marcus, a positive note. And you mentioned something there, citizen developer programs, and, you'll definitely have to, I'd love to have you back to talk about that someday too.
Would love to, Bill. Sounds great.
All right. Well, Marcus, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Bill. I appreciate it as well.
And thank you to all our viewers and listeners for joining us. You can listen to more episodes of Dynamic Developer on your favorite podcast platform, or watch a video of each episode as well as read a transcript at Tech Republic.